I call myself a mountaineer, but that's too polite a word for what I am. I'm a scavenger of summits, a thief of thin air. 30 years old now, though the wind has cured my skin like leather, and my hands belong to a much older man, scarred, split at the knuckles, blackened at the fingertips where frostbite has left its signature. Unterwelt cowers in the shadow of something they won't name. A proper Swiss village in all respects. Tidy wooden houses, geraniums spilling from window boxes, cows with bells that echo across the valley. But no one looks up. Their eyes stay fixed on the cobblestones, on their boots, on anything but the southern horizon. You seek the Verbotene Berg. The innkeeper doesn't phrase it as a question. He slides my beer across the worn oak counter, foam spilling over the rim. English climbers, always the same. I seek whatever's tallest, I reply, though we both know it's a lie. I'm not here for height. I'm here for the thing no one's conquered. An old man hunches in the corner, pipe smoke wreathing his face like mist. His eyes fix on me with the unnerving focus of a hawk. No one comes back, he says in fractured English. Not whole. I drain my beer. Men have been saying that about mountains since before Rome fell. I don't climb fairy tales. The innkeeper makes the sign of the cross. No one argues further. I rise before the sun, moving through my preparations with practiced efficiency. Each item finds its place in my pack. Rope coiled with mathematical precision, pitons nestled against carabiners, flask of water, provisions wrapped in waxed paper. My hands work independently of thought. They've packed this way 100 times before. The village sleeps as I pass through, shutters drawn tight, as if to block out more than just the dawn. Only the baker is awake, kneading dough with flour-whitened forearms. He looks up as I pass his window, makes that same crossing gesture the innkeeper did. I nod politely and continue. They think you're already dead, I mutter to myself, adjusting my pack. How tiresome. The mountain waits. Even from here, its silhouette cuts the sky like a serrated blade, jagged, uncompromising, beautiful in the way that wolves are beautiful. Not friendly, not safe, but honest in its danger. I follow a narrow path into the pines. The air grows dense, pressing against my skin like a cold, damp cloth. No birdsong, no rustling leaves, just a crunch of my boots on fallen needles. The chapel appears suddenly, a crooked stone tooth jutting from the forest floor. Its door hangs askew on rusted hinges. Inside, the air tastes stale. One wall is covered with wooden crosses, dozens, perhaps hundreds, each bearing a small brass plate. I run my fingers over them. Most read only unbekannt, unknown. One catches the weak light filtering through the begrimed windows, newer than the others. The inscription, simple. Walter zu klettern. He chose to climb. I smile. So will I. I leave the chapel and risk a glance at my lofty destination. My heart hammers against my ribs. Not fear, never that. This is the percussion of purpose, the drumbeat of the hunt. I've climbed since Cambridge, left lecture halls for limestone, traded butts for bivouacs. This is the only language I speak fluently now. The air sharpens as I leave the village behind. Pine resin and snowmelt. I breathe deeply, fill my lungs with it. The lower slopes welcome me with suspicious ease, solid footholds, good handholds. My crampons bite into rock with satisfying certainty. The rhythm comes quickly. Right hand, left foot, left hand, right foot. A climber's waltz. Not so forbidden after all, I laugh to the empty air. The air doesn't answer. Nothing does. No birds call from the twisted pines. No marmots whistle from the rocks. No insects buzz or whir. Just silence, thick as wool, wrapping around me as I climb. I pause on a narrow ledge, water flask at my lips. Something prickles at the nape of my neck, that animal sense of being observed. I scan the slopes above and below. Nothing moves, yet the feeling persists, as if the mountain itself is watching through its stony eyes. Nonsense, I mutter. Oxygen deprivation makes one fanciful. By late afternoon, I've reached the snow line. The world narrows to white and grey and black. Sharp edges against vast emptiness. The air thins, each breath less satisfying than the last. My legs burn pleasantly with exertion. I find a relatively flat shoulder of stone, protected somewhat from the steepest drops. A good place to make camp. As I unpack my tent, the first winds begin to rise, soft at first, then insistent, tugging at my sleeves, flapping the canvas in my hands. The tent goes up quickly, stakes driven deep into packed snow and gravel. Inside, I light my small stove. The familiar hiss and blue flame are comforting, a small piece of civilization in this vertical wilderness. Outside, the wind picks up further. It doesn't howl or moan, as mountain winds often do. This one whispers, almost articulate, almost words. I close the tent flap tightly. Tomorrow, the real climbing begins. I've eaten and checked my gear twice. Nothing left but sleep. Yet sleep refuses to come. The wind has changed its mind about me. It moans now, low and constant against the canvas walls. Not the clean, honest howl of Alpine gales I know so well. This sound has texture, layers, depth. It rises and falls in rhythms too deliberate for mere weather. I turn on my side, pulling the sleeping bag tighter. The temperature's dropping faster than it should. My breath blooms silver in the darkness. Just wind, I tell myself. Wind through rock formations. Basic physics. But physics doesn't explain what I'm hearing now. Beneath the moaning comes something else. A keening, high and thin, like women at a graveside, like children lost in snow, calling for mothers who will never answer. The sound crawls into my ears, down my spine, settles cold in my stomach. I sit up, rubbing my face. Altitude sickness. Early symptoms include auditory hallucinations. The wind screams louder, as if offended by my diagnosis. Something brushes against the tent. A soft, deliberate stroke along the canvas. Not a branch, we're well above the tree line. Not an animal. Nothing lives up here. My hand finds the lantern. Light blooms, pushing shadows into corners. I wait, barely breathing, listening for the sound to repeat itself. Nothing, just the endless sobbing of the wind. Nerves, I mutter, getting soft. I've slept on too many mountains to count, weathered storms that shredded Lessenen's courage. This peak is no different, just older, lonelier. The touch comes again, firmer this time. A deliberate pressure against the fabric, sliding from the roof down to the ground, as if something is measuring the tent's dimensions, learning its shape. Right, I grab my coat and boots. Enough of this. Outside, the cold slaps my face raw. The wind has teeth, biting exposed skin, finding gaps in my hastily donned layers. The storm has intensified, clouds racing across a moon so bright it hurts to look at directly. My tent strains against its moorings, canvas ripping like muscle. I scan the immediate area. Nothing moves except snow crystals dancing in moonlight. Then I look up, toward the peak. On a rock outcrop, perhaps 50 feet above my position stands a figure, tall, motionless, a silhouette darker than the night sky behind it. Hello? My voice sounds thin, childish against the mountain's voice. The figure doesn't move, doesn't acknowledge me, just stands, watching, a sentinel carved from shadow. I blink and it's gone. The outcrop stands empty, moonlight washing over bare stone. I turn back towards my tent, suddenly desperate for its flimsy shelter. The wind changes pitch, wrapping around me like cold hands. And in it, God help me, I hear words. Not one voice but many, layered atop each other, speaking in a dozen lost tongues. They form a single word that needs no translation. Don't. I freeze, one hand on the tent flap. Don't. 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 The voices rise and tangle, urgent now, all saying the same thing in languages I've never heard but somehow understand. Don't climb. Don't look. Don't listen. Don't stay. Morning breaks reluctantly, dragging itself across the sky in shades of purple and ash. I emerge from my tent to find the world transformed. The storm has passed, but left something worse in its wake, a stillness that feels like held breath. I pack quickly, fingers clumsy with cold. Fear is for children and old men. Not for me. Not here. The peak looms above, no longer a distant challenge, but an immediate threat. Its upper reaches curve like a scythe against the bruised sky, ready to harvest whatever dares approach. I check my ropes, my carabiners, my iced axes, all sound, all ready. Just a mountain, I mutter, just rock and ice and gravity. The path narrows as I climb higher. What began as a proper route becomes a suggestion, then a memory, then nothing at all. Just vertical faces and treacherous shelves of snow. My crampons bite deep, seeking purchase in ice that seems increasingly brittle. Crack. The sound splits the silence like a gunshot. The ice beneath my right boot fractures, a spider web of lines racing outward. I freeze, distributing my weight, calculating options. One wrong move, and I'll plummet hundreds of feet to certain death. Something flickers at the edges of my vision, a darkness moving across the ridge above. Too fast, too fluid to be a falling rock, too substantial to be mere shadow. My attention diverts for a crucial second. The ice gives way. I'm falling, the world spinning upward, my stomach dropping faster than my body. No time to drive in an ice axe, no ledge to catch me, just open air, and the knowledge that this is how it ends. Then, impossibly, a wind catches me, not from below, where physics would dictate, but from behind. A powerful gust that shouldn't exist in this still morning, pushing me back toward the mountain face. My flailing hand finds a crack in the rock. Fingers lock. Hold. I hang there, gasping, legs dangling over emptiness. That wind, it felt almost like hands, almost like intent. Wind eddies, I tell myself through chattering teeth. Microclimate variations, nothing more. I haul myself up onto solid ground, heart hammering against my ribs. I press on, more determined than ever. I've never turned back from a climb, never surrendered to anything, not weather, not exhaustion, not good sense. I won't start now. The route steepens. My breath comes in ragged clouds. And then I see it, the first symbol. Runes carved, or maybe burned, into solid rock. The ice around melted, a clear spot and the otherwise white-blue surface, as if the runes were branded with impossible heat, a pattern of interlocking spirals, too precise to be natural, too ancient to be human. I trace it with my gloved fingertip. The ice around it remains frozen, but the mark itself radiates a subtle warmth. 20 feet higher, another appears. Different pattern, same impossible method. Then another, and another. A trail of arcane signposts leading upward. My scientific mind rebels. Ice doesn't burn. Symbols don't appear spontaneously on mountainsides. There must be an explanation. Volcanic vents, perhaps, chemical reactions in the rock. But I know, deep in the part of me that still remembers how to fear, I know. The mountain is marked, has always been marked. And whatever left these signs is still here, watching from just beyond the corner of my eye. My breath catches in my throat. Logic screams retreat. I adjust my harness, check my rope, and continue climbing. The final steps are the hardest, always are. My lungs strain against the thin air, fingers cramping inside my gloves. But then, suddenly, there's nowhere higher to climb. I stand at the summit. The world drops away in all directions. I've summited dozens of peaks, but this is different, indescribable. The Alps stretch beneath me like the spine of some ancient beast, white ridges rippling to infinity. Clouds form a silver ocean below, catching sunlight in ways that make them appear solid enough to walk upon. I laugh, the sound swallowed immediately by the vastness. My face aches with cold and joy and triumph. This is why I climb. This perfect isolation. This conquest. I made it, I say to no one, and yet to everyone who said it couldn't be done. The summit itself is strange, unnaturally smooth, curving like a massive claw to the sky. No jagged rocks here, just polished stone beneath a thin crust of snow, almost architectural in its precision. I plant my ice axe firmly, claiming this moment. The world sings around me, high and cold and pure. Not the voices of last night, just clean mountain air moving as it should. Something catches my eye in the pristine snow. A series of depressions. I kneel, brush away fresh powder. Footprints. Not mine, not recent. They emerge from nowhere and disappear the same way. Bare human feet. No boot treads, no crampon marks. The impressions are shallow but distinct, as if preserved beneath layers of snow for years, decades, centuries. Impossible, I whisper, but the word lacks conviction. I stand quickly, suddenly aware of time. The afternoon wanes. Descending in darkness could be suicide even for me. I need to start down immediately. I look around, assessing my situation. At the summit's edge, a massive boulder sits embedded in the ice, perfectly positioned for an abseil. Below the curve of the summit, a drop of several hundred feet leads to gentler slopes beyond, back down to the valley. I do not want to spend another night on this peak. An abseil down may cost me a rope, but will save me many hours of descending. Thoughts of a beer in Unterwald sound like heaven to me, and I may be able to reach the village this evening if I take this option. Decision made, I loop my rope around the boulder, testing its stability, solid as the mountain itself. I secure my harness, double-check my knots. The descent route is steep, nearly vertical in sections. One mistake and I'll join those nameless crosses in the village chapel. I take one last look at the summit, at those impossible footprints. Then I lean back into empty space, trusting my life to physics, to rope, to my own skill, and to whatever watches from the mountain's heart. The rope slides through my hands with reassuring control. Each step backwards down the vertical face is deliberate, calculated. I've done this 100 times on peaks across 3 continents. The rhythm of descent is as familiar as my own heartbeat. Then, something changes. A shift in the air. A sudden chill that has nothing to do with temperature. The hairs on my neck rise before my conscious mind understands why. I'm being watched. I look up, squinting against the glare of snow. My breath catches, turns to ice in my lungs. The shadow stands at the summit. A human shape, hooded, motionless against the bruised sky. Impossible. No one was up there. No one could have followed me, and yet. Hello. My voice sounds thin against the mountain's vastness. The figure doesn't move, doesn't respond, just watches from that impossible height. A silhouette darker than the gathering dusk. A strange sound draws my attention back to my lifeline. A soft, deliberate splintering. The rope between my hands begins to fray. Individual fibers snapping one by one like plucked harp strings. No, no, no. I clutch the rope tighter, as if my grip alone can hold the strands together. My heart hammers so violently I feel it in my throat, behind my eyes. This can't be happening. The rope is new, tested, reliable. More fibers snap. The rope's core becomes visible, white against the coloured outer sheath. I look up again. The figure has moved closer to the edge, still watching, still silent. Help me, I scream, abandoning pride, abandoning everything except the primal need to survive. Please. The wind catches my words, scatters them across the mountainside. No echo returns, just silence and the steady unravelling of my lifeline. The last intact strands give way with a sound like a sigh. I plummet. The world spins, rock, sky, snow, shadow, all blurring together. Cold air rips the breath from my lungs. My limbs flail uselessly, searching for purchase where there is none. No unnatural wind can save me here. The last thing I see is the hooded figure, leaning over the precipice, watching my fall with the patient interest of a scientist observing an experiment. Then everything turns white. The chapel sits unchanged. Sunlight filters through dusty windows, casting long fingers across the wooden floor. The wall of crosses remains, a silent record of the mountain's appetite. A fresh wooden cross stands at the back, the pines still raw and fragrant. The brass plate gleams in the half-light, newly polished. Walter zu Klettern. He chose to climb. No name, no date, just another fool who heard the mountain's call and answered. Years later, a group of tourists wander in, cameras ready, guidebooks open. They speak in hushed tones, not from reverence, but from the instinctive quietness people adopt in places of death. How quaint, a woman says, adjusting her sunglasses. So many crosses. Do you think they're all climbers? Her companion shrugs, already bored. Probably just for show. Adds to the local colour. They take their photographs and leave, chattering about lunch plans and the best route to Zurich. The locals don't enter. They pass by with averted eyes, some making the sign of the cross, others spitting discreetly into the dirt. They know what the tourists don't, that some mountains don't need to be conquered. Some should be left alone. Above the village, clouds gather around the peak. The wind rises, sweeping down through the pines with a sound like distant weeping. I hear it now. I understand it. I am part of it. I remember falling. I remember the sudden stop. I remember the cold, seeping into my broken body, not painful but welcoming, like sinking into sleep after exhaustion. And then I was rising. Not my body, but something else, something that belonged to the mountain now. The wind carries my voice, mingled with the others who came before. We will wail our warnings that no one heeds. We will reach out with hands made of mist and air, trying to push climbers back from edges, trying to hold them when they slip. Sometimes we will succeed. Mostly, we will fail. And the mountain will grow stronger with each soul it claims. I watch a young man in the village square, studying the peak with hungry eyes. I recognize that book. I wore it once. You will climb too, I whisper in the wind. You will not listen.